Hello, this is Impact Money. I'm David Porter. We are live on Texas and Smart Money Culture TV, and we are tuning in for a great show. How is everybody? Let's get this thing rolling. So, we'll have Matthew Dixon joining soon. He talks about the current markets using his AI predictive platform, Evai. It's pretty awesome. And of course, we'll have my brother Bruce Porter Jr., and he'll be joining us live. We're doing a lot of things right now. Of course, we have Global Boost, our tech company, which started BSTY cryptocurrency that got us rolling over 10 years ago, and we've been having a great time with it. We have our sound money, which is gold, silver, your precious metals. We do at costmetals.com, and our link is at costmetals.club. So you'll be able to get precious metals, coins, bars, and things like this at cost prices. So we've had some experts, some regular buyers of precious metals take a look, and they decided to join. They saw the prices were right, and they hopped on, and now they're pretty happy with it. And so we have the next thing would be booster.live, which is our free speech platform. You'll be able to have privacy. Privacy is what we always talk about, and that's how we get along. We have big money in the markets. We have privacy with Booster Live, and we have sound slash real money with at cost metals. And here, Bruce Porter Jr.
Morning, good afternoon, good morning, Texas. Good afternoon and day around the world. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Just getting going here. Everything is well. And yeah, looking for a bright day for me. And I hope all of the viewers are too.
Very good. So yeah, well, we see, of course, we have the Fed decision coming up today. Or not the Fed decision, I guess. Well, maybe a Fed decision, but yes, we have the Fed talking, and of course, the markets are
About these
jittery.
interest rates, I believe they're going for.
Yes, they're talking about he'll come out. He'll either be dovish or he'll be hawkish. One of the two.
Yeah,
And
it's funny how almost a 50-50, isn't it? They, it's not so
well,
certain.
certainly it can be one or the other, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
50-50 is definitely one way to look at it. Of course, they have as Matt was talking about yesterday, and we'll bring him on in a few minutes here. They have kind of gotten inflation, at least on paper, under control. It may not feel like it, but the indicators that they use show that. So maybe he'll come out hawkish. We will see how that goes. So looks like Bitcoin took a dive.
As I predicted. No. I'm just kidding.
Yes, you did, didn't you? For David. Let's see here. Let's just take a look at this as we do here. Yes. There we go. So 42,400 on the Bitcoin here. It's looking more and more like it's filling in this gap, which of course we did talk about. I talked about it on stage as well. Let's see here how other things are looking here. Futures. Dow futures are.
Are you there? think we might have you frozen.
Am I frozen?
You were, now you're back.
Okay. So this is slightly down. Gold prices, let's say. Well, I don't know why it's not giving me what I want. Anyway, silver prices. I'll go over to my other not giving me what I want. Asian, here we go.
Mm-hmm. Maybe you guys shut off all your other programs. Yeah, that must be it.
Okay, Asian markets, here we go. We are largely down. You get the HSI there, right around this, just a little bit over this 15,000 mark, which is, of course, one of their numbers in their head. Of course, commodities, oil's down a point, percentage. Of course, that's had a nice run up lately. Yeah. So that is, as they do it, right? That's as things go. So we'll have our main guy coming on today, the Fed, and we'll see what he has to say. Let's go ahead. Let's bring Matt on and see what Matt has to say here.
Yes.
Yeah, good morning. Morning, Bruce. Morning, David. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Good morning. Yeah. Good day, Matt. How are you?
Very good, thank you. I've been doing a little bit of searching around today, so I'll go straight in and share my screen because I've got what I think is some really interesting insights into what to expect. So my expectation is actually, I know we talked about hawkish, my expectation is he's going to come out dovish.
Yep.
And, I'm sticking my neck on the line here. That's what I expect. And the fact that we've had a little bit of a pullback in risk assets overnight, in fact, as we speak, I think actually that's usually a sign. Markets usually move just in the opposite direction of what actually happens when the news comes out. So I trust you've shared my screen, or you can see my screen here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, good. So this one's really interesting. If we look at, so M2 money supply is the green one here, and inflation is blue and deflation is red. So what's interesting is when you see increase in money supply, and that's basically the money that's washing around in the economy, the money that people effectively have to spend. Obviously, when there's more money around, the economy is looking really, looking really good. And people are buying goods, and there's plenty of employment, etc. Everything's looking great. So that's when money supply is very high, and they often inflate money supply to try to stimulate an economy that may have been in the doldrums, but they're looking to pick it up. So just historically, it's really interesting to see here. Every time money supply in the green peaks, not long after that, you get a spike in inflation. And then obviously they start reducing money supply by withdrawing money, increasing interest rates, drawing money out of the economy to try to slow it down, because basically you increase money supply, inflation follows, the economy overheats a bit, and they want to slow it down. And as you can see, when they decrease money supply, then inflation falls off. And this has happened over and over again. So you see here, right at the start here, a peak in money supply, inflation follows. Here you see a peak in money supply, inflation follows. Peak in money supply, inflation follows. And I can go through over and over again. Peak in money supply, inflation follows. Peak in money supply, and so on and so on. Right up to today, where we had a massive peak in money supply, all the money printing and the easing of monetary easing to stimulate the economy after particularly after the COVID crisis, but after all sorts of things that we had it back in 2008. So here, massive spike in money supply, and this was the peak, and it's actually somewhat less, but it was the peak in inflation. But it looks as though inflation really has peaked because it's now coming down. Real inflation's quite low now when you look at the actual real rates. So what I'm saying is that we've already peaked in inflation. Inflation is now going down. What's really interesting is when you see money supply go below this zero line, it's actually followed by a period of deflation where the economy is actually contracting and prices are going down. And this is what they were trying to tackle back in 2008 when they increased the money supply and did the money printing, the QE. That was the experiment. I mean, the experiment started back in Japan in, a few years before that. They tried money printing, QE, and managed to stave off deflation at the time. So interestingly, as I say, once you get money supply going into negative, you actually get a period of deflation. Now, you can see that happening over and over and again. Every time it goes, money supply goes right down, you get a period of deflation. And interestingly, again, here we've got a massive decrease in money supply, M2, and you'd expect that to be followed by deflation. So this is why I'm saying the Fed are now going to start to be considering, are we entering a deflationary environment where we looked at the real rates of inflation yesterday. It's probably not the CPI level of 4%, and it's actually the real inflation, trueflation as the independents call it, is probably below the target level of 2% and dropping lower and lower. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but we're beginning to see many signs in the economy. So what I'm saying is there's an early warning sign here of potential deflation. So this means they're going to be easing monetary policy. This is why I say the Fed tonight are going to come out and they're going to be more dovish than we expect. That's my belief. That will be good for risk assets short term, but it's only a short-term fix, basically. So here's another one. I mean, we can discuss that in a minute, but here's another one: inflation, unemployment, inflation, and inverted yield curve. And we've got actually recessions marked in here in the grey. So this is, again, very, very interesting. So if we look at the blue line, which is the 10-year bond minus a 2-year bond, this is what's called the inverted, looking for inversions in the yield curve. Whenever you get an inversion, in other words, long-term rates are lower than short-term rates, you get a negative figure. And that's when this blue chart line here goes below the zero figure, you have an inversion of the yield curve. That has virtually always very, very, very accurate predictor of recessions coming. And so we see the inversion of the yield curve here, and then following it, we had recession, the gray area of recession. Again, further inversion here, recession. We got inversion here, following it, not immediately, you can see following it comes recession. Again, inversion, recession. Here it was, the only time it was probably, that's when we first tried the experiment of money printing, but we still got recession after this inversion here. And again, we've seen virtual inversion here and a small recession there, but now we're seeing quite a large inversion of the yield curve there. You can just see that currently. And that should, and I believe will be followed by recession. And this is why the Fed will be aware of all these things. They're not as stupid as I was making out. They know exactly what's going on. It's just kind of tongue in cheek that they don't know. But they do appear to be pretty poor in predicting things. But anyway, they know the signs are out there. We're heading towards deflation, recession. And so they're going to be looking at easing monetary policy, but they're afraid of coming out and saying it. So this is why the messages may be a little mixed and why we're going to have to be quite discerning when we listen to the message tonight. So I just thought for a bit of fun, we'd have a look at the records of the previous Fed chairs, and probably the most, well, it's just quite interesting, the change in inflation rate under their tenures there as Fed chairman. So Chair Powell here, you can see inflation increased, quite a bit there. That's the current sort of rate of inflation. Well, it's slightly out of date. Obviously, it's come down now a bit from here, but even so, you can just see, and Fed chair is perfectly on a par with the rest of them. Some presided over deflation, some inflation, but that's just a bit of interest as to where we stand comparing the different. Just as a matter of interest, I don't think I'm going to show it today, but the actual greatest the greatest growth in assets, the Dow Jones, for example, was under Daniel R. Kissinger, and he was the Fed chair back in the Roaring 1920s, presided over the massive stock market boom then, before the crash of 1929 and the recession that followed there. So he was the most successful in terms of growth of the stock market. And interestingly, again, under the various Fed chairs here, change in unemployment rate. And you can see actually, Chairman Powell has actually got a very good record there, that the unemployment rate has been really rock solid. And that's one of the things that the Fed try to control is steady employment. And to be fair, they have done a great job with that employment. And that's what's really kept America going, is the rates of employment are very, very high. They've done fantastically well. They're beginning to show signs of tapering off, so that is a concern. And as I said, as we enter recession, we will almost definitely see more and more unemployment. But for now, they've done a great job. But that is another reason why they will be lowering rates this year, because they need to stimulate that economy, especially as we said over and over, this is election year. They need to be seen to be doing well. So we've seen this before. This is just basically the Fed rate decision. They're going to keep rates on hold. I would say that's nailed on certainty. They'll keep rates on hold tonight. But it's the guidance that matters. And I think they're going to be probably a little bit more dovish than usual, which I think will probably be good for risk assets short term. Here's one looking, it's actually quite good to see this link, looking at the Fed funds rate compared with the S&P 500. Now, what I see is interesting here is that the S&P 500 peaks as the Fed funds peaks. Now, just think, you can see that here, a peak in the S&P 500 coincides with a peak in interest rates. And it's really then that the markets are kind of a little bit overheated. They're trying to slow them down, which is what they've done by raising interest rates. And then you start to see both the S&P and so on falling. But that's probably when recession hits. So again, we saw that here with the COVID crisis and recession there. And you can see here the recession there and there. So that's when the S&P will fall. So we're not yet at the stage of recession. So I still think there's room for a little bit more upward movement in risk assets like the S&P, like crypto and so on. But what's interesting is that the Fed funds rate has peaked. We basically, the next time rates are changed, it's going to be downwards. And so we are at a peak here. So it's highly likely that risk assets like they were here, like they were here, like they were here, we're going to see a downturn and we're going to see recession. So these are all, it's just simple mechanics, really. One thing leads to another and nothing's really changed. So I do believe that we're headed for a downturn in risk assets as we peaked now on interest rates. There's going to be warning signs there. Couple more, this is just another kind of reiteration of the last chart, and you can just see again the relationship here where the S&P 500 in blue peaks around the peak in rates at the time, and you can see it here, you can see it here, and you can see we're basically there now. As I say, we may get just a touch higher, but we're near a turnaround point, and we're also got recession coming. We've had all these recessions that coincide, as you can see, with the peak in Fed funds rate. Here, recession, here, recession, here, recession, here, recession. Every single time the Fed funds peak, we have recession to follow. Fed funds have peaked, we're going to get recession. So that is a fact, as far as I'm concerned. How does this affect Bitcoin going forward? Well, as I said, short term, I believe we're going to get a dovish statement tonight, or we're going to start erring towards being more dovish. And I think they may even signal rate cuts ahead. If they do, that could be good risk assets short term. So I've got a couple of potential counts here on Bitcoin. It's either 1 or A up, 2 or B down, and 3 or C up. Now, the implications of that is it's basically Both of them, whether it's 3 or C, we haven't finished the upside move to complete that move. So I do believe with a dovish outlook tonight, whether it's tonight, whether it's in the days that follow, I'm not nailing it precisely, but soon I do believe we're going to get, sorry, let me move back or forward even. We're going to get another move up in risk assets, including Bitcoin. And it's not necessarily this level of 64K, but that would be a really nice level as it's 1.618, that golden ratio, times the previous move up, which was to the wave 1 or wave A here. So I think that we're probably set for a short-term rally, but as I say, I'm not nailing precisely when it's going to start. But I think a dovish stance tonight would set the backdrop, set the right environment for that to happen. And also obviously got the very good news of ETF approval and more ETF launches in China, etc., etc. So that's a kind of quick overview of what I'm expecting from tonight with Bitcoin. XRP has been an interesting one. It's really sold off quite sharply the last couple of days. I don't know whether it's going to hold within this channel. It's not a very well-drawn channel. I drew it, by the way. But just roughly, this kind of channel it's following. I don't know whether, I mean, we've actually already, I think, just on live prices, just broken below here. But I still think if the Fed come out dovish, we are going to push up. And maybe we push towards the upper boundary of this channel. And that could be a really good pump in risk assets, Bitcoin, and possibly here, XRP as well. But I think quite a little bit different, or maybe a little bit more informative than the Bitcoin chart. The Bitcoin chart, I was confused whether it's ABC higher or 1, 2, 3. Well, XRP is telling me that Bitcoin was probably actually ABC higher, because we've had a move up This is a long-term chart, weekly, and a move down, a move up. I don't think we're going to break to new highs here at all. So it's definitely not going to be wave 2, then wave 3, because wave 3 would need to go beyond this wave 1, substantially beyond it. And I don't think that's going to happen on this run, at least. So I think this is all corrective. I think the ABC and Bitcoin, just to move back very briefly, I think this is actually going to be a C wave. And I think we will get another push down, probably when we head into recession. Yes, they're going to lower rates, and slightly longer term, that'll be good for risk assets. But initially, when recession hits, it's going to be a nasty little shock to everybody. So that's XRP. And then just another touch on money supply, the money that's available in the economy. You can see they're withdrawing money from the economy now. And this basically means there's going to be less money to spend, less money to grow that economy, and less money available in people's pockets to spend on risk assets. And I think finally, because I know you're crazy about gold, you're gold bugs, so I just wanted to put something here about the Fed balance sheet, basically, and compare it with the price of gold. There's not a direct correlation, but there seems to be some sort of relationship there that I think we can possibly infer something from, that if the Fed balance sheet were to increase in the future, as we said it will do when they enter recession, then potentially gold will go up. Short term, it's going to be challenging, but I do think there's still a great story to tell for gold as things move on later this year. So probably a good news for gold there. And then just very finally, I'm going to end up with just reiterating where we are with the Fed funds rate. When it peaks, recession follows. When it peaks, recession follows. Peak recession, peak recession, peak recession, and so on. And then the last one we've seen peak, and we're just waiting for recession in 2024. So that's the bad news. The good news is, hopefully, he'll come out with a nice dovish statement tonight to give us a good bullish push on all risk assets.
A good bullish push would be nice right about now, after this pullback that we've had, of course. And I know the stocks have been flat, but they look pretty primed for a big pump too. So it could be a big day in the markets.
Yeah, I think as I say, this just from experience. I've traded many years. When I follow these interest rate decisions, when they're coming up, I normally look for a kind of opposite move just before the decision comes out, and I do believe that's probably what we're seeing. That bit of a sell-off in risk assets right now. And I do really pretty firmly expect that we're going to see some dovish statements. The thing is, you never know quite when the markets are going to follow that news. Yes, they react pretty quickly to everything he says, but sometimes you'll still get some real choppiness through the news release. But then in coming days, you'll see the follow through, the fact that people then absorb and digest what that news was, the fact that, yes, there's going to be, they're going to be still stimulating the economy. They're going to be lowering interest rates, which means there's less of a headwind for business. And that's got to be a good thing. It means there's more money in people's pockets. And as we see inflation falling more and more, we'll see things that people spend money on, the fuel that they have to, not just fuel at the pump, but fuel for transportation, fuel for heating homes. I mean, we're still in winter, I guess it's still cold. So, fuel prices are very, very important to us. And then food prices, these things that we spend, if inflation's coming down, it's going to mean we've got more money in our pockets, which is going to mean we can spend more and invest more in risk assets like cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, S&P 500, houses, all those things we love to have to invest in, to appreciate. That's what's around the corner, I hope and believe. And I think that's what the Fed chair is going to tell us tonight.
All right. Well, there you have it. Everybody's watching very closely. Now, when, of course, Matt talks about the jobs and everything else, a lot of that stuff, if you're here, you don't feel it as much. When you're on the outside looking in and you're looking at the numbers, the U.S. economy as a whole is a world powerhouse, and there's really nothing else like it in the world. Even with everything that, even with the bad stuff, it's really an amazing phenomenon.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, there's no questioning people have challenged. And as I said the other day, Russia, Iran, China, they're all challenging the US's effectively lead and control. And it will diminish, I believe. China is rising. There's no doubt about that. So it will diminish over time. And the Fed and the US need to be very, very careful to try to protect their position. And that's I guess what the Fed's all about, is monitoring these risks, evaluating and acting upon them to ensure that the US stays ahead. But everything is still priced in US dollars. You want to buy oil, you buy it in US dollars. You want to buy grain, you want to buy sugar, you want to buy everything is priced in US dollars for the time being. That could change in coming years. And so I'm sure the Fed are quite aware of what's happening, and I'm sure they'll be taking the necessary steps to protect the powerful US economy.
No doubt about it. Well, very good. Matt, I know we have some stuff that's coming up as well. We'll be sharing some more stuff if you guys want to start trading and or learning more about trading. So we'll have some more on that coming up here in the near future. Matt has done a heck of a job trading and making quite a living as well as he's doing it.
Is the Learn to Trade link live? Learn to Trade Club.
That's correct. Yeah, learnhowtotrade.club. Yeah. I mean, the thing about trading is it's not about fortune telling. It's not about predicting the future. Trading is basically a technique which can be learned. And it's not, those people who say they can predict future prices, nobody can predict future prices unless they've got inside information, like some people we may know. But other than inside information, you cannot predict future prices from TA alone. But there are trade techniques which will ensure that you can make money over the long term through trading. And those are the sort of techniques that we're teaching. Technical techniques, psychological, behavioral techniques, using the latest technology in AI, those techniques. So combining all those things together, I've been trading for many, many years. I've learned the hard way. And this learnhowtotrade.club is basically teaching you the easy way. You don't have to go through 40 years worth of pain. You can actually learn a 10-week trading course and avoid all those nasty obstacles.
Very cool. Well, awesome. It's what's going on. Of course, when he talks about the price, not being able to predict the price, it's exactly right. You have all these macroeconomic issues, world political issues. We have war, we have all of these types of things, but you only have to win most of the time. You have to win most of the time. That's the way it works.
There's actually a very famous book. I read it, or part of it, as part of my thesis. I read through that, called A Random Walk Down Wall Street, I think it's called, written by Burton and Malkiel. I think it was 1972, somewhere around there. So many, many, many years ago. But it's basically saying it's a random walk down Wall Street, that you cannot predict based on on historical price movements what the next movement will be. It's a random walk, so you don't know which way the next step will go. And that has been borne out by many Nobel Prize winners, researchers, academics along the way. But it doesn't mean that there aren't ways that you can trade profitably. It just means that you can't predict the future precisely.
Yep.
Yeah,
So it's all about risk reward at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's a big guy out there like FTX that spends everybody else's money, and you lose your whole investment.
Yeah, I mean, you've got that. You've got, Bernie Madoff. It's not just about crypto, is it? You've got crooks everywhere. But again, if it's sounds too good to be true, then it probably is. So trading is not just, again, not predicting the future, taking lucky guesses. There's a lot of hard work goes into it. So you've got the crooks, but you've also got, there's some solid people out there. Warren Buffett obviously built his life around successful investing, and you can read some of his stuff. It's absolutely fantastic. The just simple messages that he puts out that aren't get rich quick schemes. They're just basically logical, make sense suggestions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right. Well, Matt, thank you so much for joining us again and bringing the insight.
Thank you, Matt.
Is amazing stuff.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you, everybody. And again, I'll be out on Twitter busy tonight as they release the news of the interest rate, and also whatever comments come out in the press conference later. We'll just see how they impact the market. But hopefully it's going to be a good day today.
Perfect. Yeah, that's Matt at MD Trade.
Make sure to follow Matt at MD Trade. Of course, David is Sir David Porter, and myself, as you know, is Networks Manager. Awesome.
That's it. Thank you, David. Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, everybody. Catch you again.
Okay, talk soon. All right, I had a video queued up. I wanted to play. This is from the great Ron Paul. This is an interview that he put out yesterday, and it is really worth a watch. So let's watch a little bit of this here. I just want to put this on. Here we go.
Yeah. But why should we have to worry about that?
Great Ron Paul. I have to stay on that tab.
Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the Liberty Report. With us today, we have
Come on,
Daniel
Ron.
McLeod.
Get it up. Let's go. Yeah, Impact Money talking big money,
They have
sound
control of
money.
foreign policy. Are they crazy or mentally ill or just what? Or are they conspiring to do something and they're totally naive? But anyway, their motivation, I like to talk about motivations. Why do they do it? What's the purpose of this? But there's a lot of them that I can't understand their motivation because it's so bizarre and so weird. And our foreign policy is getting worse. We need to work harder at what we're doing. The best we can do is expose what we see and give a suggestion that maybe a different approach would be better. And of course, if we talk about it and say anything, we get blasted for being isolationists. We don't want to deal with the world. We don't want to have trade and visits and travel. No, they don't accept the idea of non-intervention, which is what the founders believed in and advised us to do, saying that we would have a better chance for peace and prosperity if we just would mind our own business. But that doesn't mean we isolate ourselves. Matter of fact, it's the opposite. This is what we're doing. We isolate ourselves. Our foreign policy is isolating our country more than ever before. And yet they use the term that we're the ones who want to be the isolationists and pursue war. But the truth is otherwise, so we'll work on that, and we have a job for that. But there was a big event yesterday, and it caught the attention of all the media, though there's been events like this have been similar. They've been worse, but for some reason, somebody needed a little bit of action, and the action, the media had got the action because that's all they talked about for the last 36 hours, and that is dealing with the 3 American troops killed in a drone attack in Jordan.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I wonder what they were doing there.
Yeah.
I wonder if they were authorized to go there and start a war. We'll have to ask Biden.
Yeah, he'll know.
Why he sent them over there. But 3 American troops killed. But, not many people will ask the question of what in thunder are they there? But I think there's been a map around, I hope we get to see it, showing where we are. I mean, it's so extensive. The only thing when I look at this, and I wanted to get discouraged, is I look at it and more people are saying, they're asking the same questions we are.
Oh, yeah.
Why are we there? Why are we spending money in Ukraine? At the same time, we could use a little bit of help on our own borders. But people are talking that way.
Yes.
So I would think that eventually truth wins out. But, there's the establishment that would deal with our wise professors, our media, most journalists, except for the few that we know, are all there to distort what's going on. And that is a real challenge. But this, of course, is another example of what we warn about, things getting out of control, the unintended consequences. How long are they going to last? How many people die? How much money it costs? All these things. And, it's a shame to be right on this stuff, And there's a lot of people out there because we know them and we'll be able to, and they are able to explain the stupidity of it all. But it looks like it's still going to be a struggle. But there's things happening now. There's issues out there that if we use that and get that message out to the people, I think they would have a change of heart.
Yeah, and it is a tragedy. We can put this first clip up. This will tell you what's happening. It's from antiwar.com and Dave DeCamp. 3 American troops killed in drone attack in Jordan. Now, there's some speculation about the in Jordan, and Dave carefully writes that it's according to CNN. Jordan has denied that there has been an attack on its own territory, pardon me, coming from Iraq. So there is a question, and there's some speculation that these troops were actually near the Al-Tanf air base in Syria, and that the U.S. government doesn't want to get out that they were killed in Syria, because as you were saying, some of the questions that they will have it double because the U.S. troops are not there legally in Syria. So there's a question about that. Nevertheless, it's a tragedy for these service members, and about 36 who've been injured, some of whom apparently fairly seriously. They had to be medevaced out to Germany. So it's a pretty big event, a pretty serious event. But as you say, Dr. Paul, and very importantly, This is not unusual. This has happened before. The media would like us to believe that this is the first time an American has ever been killed there, and they've crossed a red line. It's time for us to go in. Well, in fact, it's not. And we've talked about it on the show many times. There have been, I think, at least 200 attacks since the October 7th Hamas issue in Israel. So the fact of the matter is there's been many, many more. Americans have been killed there. They're stationed where they shouldn't be. And the only reason these troops are there, Dr. Paul, is to act as a tripwire. Literally, their purpose is being served by them being hurt or killed. You talk about a Washington and a Pentagon who cares about the soldiers. No, that's the reason they're there, because they know as soon as there's a death, as soon as these service members are killed or hurt, there's going to be a clamor for military action. And what happens when that happens? Well, the neocons go nuts. Well, let's take a look at this next, because this will give you a map and an idea of the area we're talking about. This is an interesting convergence point between Jordan, Iraq, and Syria. And as you can see, these U.S. military facilities inside Syria and in Jordan and Iraq, they have something very, very interesting and important in common. They all control the main road between Baghdad and Damascus. So the U.S. military controls these roads to make sure that there is no communication between Damascus and Iraq and Baghdad. And I think that's a very important point. So yes, as soon as something like this happens, we see what happens next. Let's go to the next clip, because the usual suspects say the usual things. Lindsey Graham, hit Iran now, hit them hard. Senator John Cornyn from our own state, target Tehran, even though, of course, they were fired from Iraq into Jordan. It doesn't matter, Dr. Paul. Anything that goes wrong, hit Iran.
That's it. And you know, this really got them stirred up. There's a lot more statements like that floating around, dozens and dozens.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Just to you know, stir the pot. And it's almost like
Now, I just wanted to pause. I want to go on with that because it's so important. I mean, Ron Paul, this guy is the you know, he was the first one that I saw it as a kid, and I saw what they did to him. He was winning. He would have won the presidential election, but they good morning. I know the feeling. But if he would have won, but they made him disappear. I mean, they took him off of everything. He wasn't on TV at all. Once he started garnering support, which he used to have, he was the only other person that I saw, and he didn't on Trump's level. Admittedly, I mean, Trump is an icon. He's a rock star, but Ron Paul had those type of rallies as well, massive events. Everybody was very enthusiastic for this guy. Our good friend Nick Spanos, of course, worked on his campaign as well as his sons, and but he is, and you listen to what he says. You know, I should just play him more often, because he says everything that I would say. You should listen to Ron more often. But what a statesman, talking exactly about what's happened and what they're doing, and it's all about going in to Iran and the war and everything else. And look how it's all unfolding. So let's continue here.
on your mark, get set, go, and then they're all prepared for the next event. And like we have said, there's been many of these, but sometimes it gets more attention. So I just wonder why they're getting some attention here. But you know, I picked two headlines I wanted to compare. I don't think this is very significant, but I just caught my eye. And one from a Politico, which we quote, every once in a while, and they're not as bad as some are. And but they're not libertarians, and they're probably not Republican. But so their first spin on this: Republican hawks call for retaliation. Well, from this, you don't know whether they're pro or con or what. But what got my attention is the Republicans. So if they want to blame somebody, it's those Republicans that are going to cause the trouble. But now Zero Hedge, is reporting on the same thing. And they're a little bit different because we know that they make a lot more sense than most of them do. But this one starts off, Politico was Republican hawks call for. the Zero Hedges congressional hawks urge hit. So it's the same thing. And then I got to thinking, it's probably neither the Republicans nor the Democrats. It's hawkish. But who are the hawks? The hawks are who have relationship with the deep state, with the military-industrial complex, and they listen, because some of the people that respond when they're called to action, you'd say, well, they weren't that bad before. Why are they doing this thing? But they respond, and they have, and you used a couple quotes already. But if you really had the time and wanted to, we could probably do a whole program just reading the threats and the innuendos. Boy, this is an opportunity, and if you don't do it, the end of the world is going to come. And it supports the fact that you don't want any of these weaklings coming in and saying, well, maybe we shouldn't have a retaliate. Maybe we should reassess our own foreign policy. And that I happen to believe in, that, it's not a one-sided deal, but that's a little more difficult, because that means, we're practicing free speech, but it's not politically correct, because you're challenging one's own government, and that's not very popular. But I've always argued that the First Amendment was designed where you could criticize your own government and not get put in jail. But it seems like that is fading from us, and that's a serious problem in itself.
I think one of the problems that ails Americans is, particularly when it comes to foreign policy, they're incapable of self-reflection. It would have been wise to pause for a moment and say, why? Why are they attacking our bases in Iraq and Syria and Jordan? Well, because they don't want us there. Well, what was the reason we invaded Iraq for the second time in the first place? To give them their democracy.
Pause that again, because it's so important. What they're saying is so important. We're going to give you the gift of democracy. You take it. Shove it down their throat. I mean, our way is the best way, period. You know what I mean? And then you look at our, of course, government is, it's not even representative. We don't have hardly any control. I was wondering if he was going to drop the central bank there. He called it the deep state. Everybody, we have different ways that we call it, because everybody's been maybe beat up one way or the other. It's kind of funny. Mm-hmm. I haven't gotten a visit from the central bank guys yet, but I might. But certainly, this group of people is very powerful, and I have knocked with them once or twice.
Yeah, they interrupted me once, Mr. Monopoly guy.
Yes. But this is just, I could play the whole thing, but let's continue with it a little longer. But I just wanted, again, point that out. I mean, this is exactly right. And if you remember, Wesley Clark talked about why we went into Iraq in the first place. And it was because we'd gotten the attack or whatever on 9/11, and we didn't really know what to do with the military. We didn't know how to go after anybody. So they came up with this plan, and we were going to go after, Iran and Iraq. And actually, that clip is right here. It's worth playing, and then I can come back to this if I want to. It's just right here. I just saw it. So
Gaza right now, we have some moral responsibility.
This is Ron Paul talking about
what's happening in the Middle East, and in particular with Gaza right now. We have some moral responsibility for both sides in a way, because we provide help and funding for both Arab nations and Israel. And so we definitely have a moral responsibility, and especially now today, the weapons being used to kill so many Palestinians are American weapons, and American funds essentially are being used for this. But there's a political liability, which I think is something that we fail to look at, because too often there's so much blowback from our intervention in areas that we shouldn't be involved in. Hamas, if you look at the history, you'll find out that Hamas was encouraged and really started by Israel, because they wanted Hamas to counteract Yasser Arafat.
Well, and
it served its purpose, but we didn't want Hamas to do that. So then we as Americans say, well, we have such a good system. We're going to impose this on the world. We're going to invade Iraq and teach people how to be Democrats. We want free elections. So we encourage the Palestinians to have a free election. They do, and they elect Hamas. So we first indirectly and directly through Israel help establish Hamas. Then we have election. Then Hamas becomes dominant. So we have to kill them. You know, it just doesn't make sense. During the 80s, you know, we were allied with Osama bin Laden. And we were contending with the Soviets. It was at that time our CIA thought it was good if we radicalized the Muslim world. So we financed the madrasa schools to radicalize the Muslims in order to compete with the Soviets. There's too much blowback. There's a lot of reasons why we should oppose this resolution. It is not in the interest of the United States. It's not in the interest of Israel either.
Yeah. It's interesting when you hear someone just tell it to you straight.
I mean, the man is like a legend. He is a legend. You wonder why Ron they got rid of Ron Paul. Well, there you go, folks. He told you how it was. All the time, 100% of the time. I could go on I could do a Ron Paul show. And the clip that I had of Wesley Clark, let me just see if I need to if my computer will pull it up here real quick. All right, networks. But you know, people don't talk about that stuff. They're scared to talk about that. Here, let me just share. This is the clip I was talking about, where General Wesley Clark talks about why we went into Iraq, why we went in.
Worry about Iraq. To worry about Iraq, not Iran. I knew why, because I'd been through the Pentagon right after 9/11. About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld and Deputy Secretary Wolfowitz. I went downstairs just to say hello to some of the people on the Joint Staff who used to work for me. And one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in. You got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, No. He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, "We're going to war with Iraq. Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." So I said, "Well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al Qaeda?" He said, No. He says, "There's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper. He said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today. And he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran." I said, "Is it classified?" He said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, don't show it to me." And I saw him a year or so ago, and I said, "You remember that?" He said, "Sir, I didn't show you that memo. I didn't show it to you."
It's craziness. It's craziness.
Yeah, it is.
You know, that's and you know, it's these older clips that you can find out a lot from history, right? That's why they try to control history so much, and that's why it's so important that we put the history on the blockchain that
Right.
is that you can't change. Not one of these new ones that you can change, but one of the old ones that you can change that you can't change. So 2 things here. I'm going to play a little bit more of this, I think, but 2 things. Number 1, go to @costmetals, @costmetals.com, @costmetals.club. We'll forward you right to our referral link. Sign up there. You need silver. You need gold. We're not financial advisors, okay? But you need to be part of the monetary revolution. Okay, you need to be part of that. Was that the Bush administration? That indeed was the Bush administration. Remember old Wesley Clark there? I can't remember exactly when he was around, but what happened, what he was talking about happened during the Bush administration. So that's the one thing. And then go to Global Boost with the dot between the O and the ST, Global Boost, and get involved. You can, the exchanges are on there. It's a little bit tricky. I understand it's tricky, but it's a proof of work chain. And that's how you have to do it. We're not we don't raise money or anything like that through this. This is you get involved, you get a piece of it, and then you further the project and what we're doing. And what we're doing there is starting the decentralized media network so that we can disseminate history and we can record history in a way that's censor resistant. I would say censor proof, but you can't put anything past these guys. But it's censor resistant, hopefully to be censor proof. Some of the technology that we have there as well, booster.live. Feel free to check that out. No E in that, booster, just the R after the ST, booster.live. Check that out. That is peer-to-peer, end-to-end, real, encrypted. Doesn't even go on our, you should watch the load on my server. We have all types of people on there, and it's actually decentralized servers as well. But it is from device to device, and so there's really no load on the server. It's very interesting and amazing technology that the guys have put together on that. Feel free to check it out. Like I said, it's encrypted end to end and peer to peer. It's a web app as well, so our web interface, so you don't have to download an app. We all know. Anything that gets into the App Store, and we have apps on the App Store as well, but anything encrypted, I firmly believe that gets it on the App Store, has a backdoor, whether they know it or not. Maybe they don't know it. Who knows, right? But definitely a backdoor on there, and that's firmly believe in that. So I won't play any more of that. We'll play some more of Ron Paul, though, moving forward. I mean, the guy is an absolute legend. He's a citizen of Liberland like us, David.
Yeah, I know. It's really awesome.
Yes. Liberland. Remember, I don't know if you guys were watching, that was the early days, the first or second show, right?
I saw
first week anyway.
President Vitt was talking to the president of Croatia the other day. So hopefully some progress and some relationships are moving forward in a good way there.
Yes. That is pretty amazing. Of course, Croatia has been a sticking point for us in our fight there. Of course, they've been a little funny, but overall good people. So, anyhow, thanks for joining us again. We'll be back on in about 5 hours in 11 a.m. in Texas, 12 noon Eastern Standard Time, 3 p.m. Or no, I got to stop that. 4 p.m. in London.
Okay, we'll see you soon. Thanks for tuning in.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.